Hello and welcome to the show. Before we begin, apologies. I have my rascals at home because, of course, today is Sunday. I've tried to get them to keep quiet, but I don't think that the peace truce is going to last for a long time. So if you hear any noise in the background, that's them. I've done my best to try and muffle them out of the audio. If it works, cool. If it doesn't work, then on to the next recording. So, where are we? The name of the show, Sales for the Nigerian Business Person Podcast, is available on the big three: Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple iTunes, or any podcast player of your choice. Subscribe for free because people keep thinking that you have to pay, at least in Nigeria anyway. A lot of folks are running to think you have to pay, but you don't. So once you're done listening to this episode, subscribe. Today on the show, we're going to be looking at unlocking the sales enigma, the hidden connection between logic and emotion in selling. If you've been listening to this show for any length of time, you know that this is not a title that I crafted myself. So, if I didn't craft the title myself, what is it doing today on the list of things that we have to discuss? It's because it was the title of a Facebook Live that I engaged in. Is it engaged in or engaged with? Engaged in on Saturday, 8th of July, 2023. That was yesterday. That's with a customer acquisition specialist. Excuse me. His name is Emmanuel Uzoma Aniefenam. For those of you who are Igbo, forgive me for murdering your brother's name. So, I came across him on Facebook because he put up a post he put up a post on Facebook about selling with emotion versus selling with logic, and he was trying to argue that one is better than the other. And of course, for those of you who've been listening for a while, you already know what my opinions are about these sorts of things because I've made lots of episodes on things like this in the past. So I hit the guy up. He was cool. I said, let's have a Facebook Live. Let's debate it. It's going to be enlightening, and it's going to be a rich topic of discourse for both of our audiences. We'll share the audio on our Facebook profiles, and then I'll be able to rip it and then use the audio over here on the podcast. And so he agreed, and so we decided to do that. Anyway, it turned out that the recording wasn't so great at the end of the day, and so I figured that I'll make this a recap episode to cure for that, since we weren't able to get the audio. So anyway, that's the backstory why we are discussing unlocking the sales enigma, the hidden connection between logic and emotion in selling. So, the Facebook Live, we had to wait a bit because lots of folks didn't show up on time, which is understandable because in this part of the world, we talk about African time. We're Nigerian, so I don't know why we call it African time. I'd be surprised if our brothers in South Africa or in Egypt, for instance, share the same, share the same proclivity for being late. But anyway, that's what we call it in this part of the world, African time. So you set an event for 8 p.m., you don't expect people to start trickling in until about 8:20, maybe 8:30. So while we were waiting for people to show up, I mentioned to the house, that's the 2 or 3 people who are there, the reason why the program was important because too many people are freestyling in sales or try to rely on talent, and they don't realize that whether they are trying to do a logical approach to their sales or whether they're trying to overwhelm people with emotions or bamboozle them, they fail to realize that there's a system to selling, and all we have to do is learn that system and apply it accordingly to our concrete circumstances. So that's the reason why this was a good topic, so that people who are curious would stop freestyling and stop trying to invent something new. So if you're one of those people who is in the emotions camp, there's a system for that. Learn it and apply it accordingly. If you lean towards my own end, where we are more, logic, framework, and all of that, learn it, apply it accordingly, see how it applies to your own context. And so that was just the gist basically that I gave those who are waiting. There was somebody in the real estate space, and he didn't seem to have a good grasp of how selling principles applies to his industry, and so I had to run over the whole spiel about simple sales scenarios and complex sales scenarios, and how real estate sales, property development, property investment, investing, those sorts of things are much more complex sales scenarios, and so you have to think of yourself more as a consultant rather than somebody who's just trying to come and push something on someone because it's not a commodity. If this is your first time listening to the podcast and you haven't been exposed to these sorts of ideas, then when you're done listening to this show, use the search function of whatever podcast or web browser that you're using to listen to my voice right now and search for how to close the deal in real estate or closing the deal in real estate, something like that. You're going to see a series of podcasts. I think I did about 5 or 6 of them, and it was exploring material and discussions that I ran through about 3 years back. Let's say 2, 3 years back, when I did training for Kairos Real Estate over here in Abuja, and that was the topic of the seminar, how to close the deal in real estate. After I was done with that, I thought it was good material, so I recorded a couple of podcast episodes, so about 5 or 6 of them, and you should get caught up to speed about simple and complex sales scenarios and how selling principles apply in either case. Okay, so 2 attendants remained constant throughout the whole Facebook Live, and that was the BTB Constructions fellow. I should have gotten his Instagram handle so that I can shout him out so that you guys can have a look and follow, just to support the guy's hustle. And like I said, he's in real estate and property development. Then there was also another lady, Oyinkan Sola. Forgive me, Yoruba people, for murdering your sister's name. Well, actually, the only Oyinkan Solas I know are guys, so I was surprised that an Oyinkan Sola showed up and she was female. So I didn't get her own line of business. She didn't respond. Let's see what else. Well, the engagement was mostly over chat because this is Facebook Live, so it's not like Zoom where people can just drop in with their own video. So so since engagement was mostly over the chat, future attendees at subsequent Facebook Lives that I'm going to host, because I intend to host Facebook Lives with other marketing communications professionals or sales professionals or customer acquisition professionals or business development professionals or whatever it is that we want to call it. I want to do Facebook Lives with them on specific topics that we're going to debate. And I'm not trying to argue that my own way is right or that their own way is wrong. I'm just trying to expose you guys to the idea that it's all about systems and processes. We shouldn't go about freestyling. There's some theory and there's a system behind the sorts of things that we do, behind these principles that we espouse and that we follow. And so whether you agree with me or you agree with the other person who I happen to be debating, what I'm trying to tease out is that there's a system. Learn the system, apply the system to the context, you'll be fine, whether you agree with me or whether you agree with the other chap. So if you're going to be tuning into the Facebook Lives, most of the engagement is going to be in the chat, so make sure that you use the chat freely, because, well, that's the way that I'm going to be getting answers back from you guys and engaging with you guys. So I pose questions, I wait for answers, and then I use the people's responses about their business as case studies, and then that way we can see how all this theory can be applied, all this theory and the ideas that we discuss over here on the podcast and in the Facebook Live, how we can apply it to their own businesses. So B2B real estate, he engaged, and because of that, he was our guinea pig for the day, and a lot of the discussions was about how we can apply emotions to boost business in the real estate space, or logical frameworks to boosting people's business. So that's it. If you're part of a future Facebook Live, please engage so that you can be our guinea pig. You'll see how these ideas apply, and it will help illustrate to other people how it applies as well. So this is not just for Facebook Live people. If you're on any Zoom that I'm on or any webinars, don't be afraid of using the chat function. You are not going to be distract me. It's the best way to use your time and get value out of all these things. So what are the questions that we discussed? We discussed our reasons for getting into customer acquisition, into sales and marketing. And it turns out that we both had failed personal enterprises And we realized that the gap was that we didn't know how to get people to buy from us, either online or in person. And that is what began our romance with this particular aspect of business consulting. So he's been in space since 2018, 2019. Mr. Emmanuel, some of his inspirations in this space are Russell Brunson. He's the lead magnet guy. He's a sales funnels guy. If you don't know what that is, when you're done listening to this episode, use the search function. You will find episodes where I've spoken about sales funnels. Then there's also the author of a book, Sell Like Crazy, I think. But because Mr. Emmanuel's audio was poor, I didn't get the author's name. Then we also discussed why explaining too many details of the product is bad, because people buy. They buy because they've made emotional connections that they make, and then they end up justifying the purchase later on with logic. So we should be looking for emotional involvement in the process. So whether you are a process person or an emotions person, either way, we're still looking for emotional involvement. So an example of this is someone who buys a car. Really, he buys it because of how it looks or how it makes him feel. When he's sitting behind the Benz and all that. But when he's talking about it to his friends, he's going to bring up logical reasons. He's going to talk about price, that okay, it's a good price for the Benz, or speed, 0 to 60 and blah blah blah, or performance, fuel, what's that thing called? Fuel efficiency, blah blah blah, convenience, all these sorts of things. But then sometimes really it just boils down to this car made him feel good. He likes it. Then we drew some distinctions on different kinds of emotions that you can elicit in the sales process. So emotions don't have to be happy feelings all the time, because negative emotions can be useful in the sales process as well. So sometimes you're making a good pitch. You're trying to push some good vibes out there about buying your product or service. But then you can also do it the other way around. You can try and push out some bad vibes out there about negative feelings, trying to create negative feelings about what might happen or the possibility of loss if the person doesn't buy from you. For instance, you're in the investment space and you can position it as the investment decisions you make today, you should make them because of the promise of growth tomorrow. That's the good that is going to come. So invest in me, invest with me and my firm in this particular product so that you can make millions of naira tomorrow. That's good feelings, good emotions, good vibes. But you could also say, invest with me, my firm, and this particular investment product, this hedge fund, the stock market, or whatever. Because if you don't, you're going to lose the value of the money that you have in your bank account to inflation or stagnation. So you can see that's how it works. One way is to say, put your money here because the future of tomorrow is bright. That's what we're promising you. So that's good emotions. Or you can say, put your money here because if you don't and you leave your money where it is, things are going to go bad. So we drew some of those distinctions during the Facebook Live. So it's not all about happy feelings. Sometimes you can use negative feelings as well. Which should you use? That is a topic for another episode. For those of you who've been listening for a while, you already know which way I kind of lean on the topic. Then, Mr. Emmanuel stressed the importance of emotional intelligence in the sales process, and it's something he got turned on to by Brian Tracy. But actually, it's an older concept that was explored by an author, Daniel Coleman, I think. I'm not sure if it's Coleman with a C or Goleman with a G, but it's Coleman. So try Coleman, try Goleman, whoever it is that comes up. That's the guy. So he came up with a book in 1995. I read it a long time ago. And he was trying to show how emotional quotient, or EQ, can be better than intelligence quotient, or IQ. Now, this is the backdrop. Back when we were kids, those of us who are late 70s and early 80s kids, back when we were kids, everybody was talking about IQ. What is your IQ point? How smart are you? And the idea was that the brighter your IQ, the better your prospects for progress in a business or career or academia or whatever. So in other words, you were a smart kid, you had a bright future. You were a dumb kid, you have a questionable future. Forgive me, please. I'm not trying to insult anyone. I'm just speaking true to how people used to talk about stuff like that in the old days. In fact, in Nigeria, the teacher in Nigerian classrooms would have no problems saying that the child was a dunce. That's how they used to say it back then. But happily, things have changed. So teachers don't wash out kids in front of the class anymore. At least not in private schools anyway. I don't know if that sort of behavior still goes on in public schools. So Daniel Coleman and a couple of other people in 1995, so late 90s, in the 90s and noughties, is that what you call 2000 and onwards? I think you call them the noughties. They were trying to show that there's this thing called emotional quotient, how well you understand yourself, your internal environment, and other people's emotions, how you can self-regulate and adapt to other people. Now that is also important in determining how far you can go. So if you're a smart kid, but then you also have high EQ, you know about yourself, how to balance your emotions, and how to react to the emotional environment of other people around you, then you're going to be able to achieve your goals. So that's what that whole gist is about, IQ versus EQ. And it's something that Mr. Emmanuel stressed during the Facebook Live. I've also spoken about that on the podcast, and that's one of the newer episodes. I think that might be this year or maybe late last year, where I was talking about intelligence quotient, because it's something else that is new right now. So we started off with IQ in late 60s until 70s and then 80s. How smart are you? Then the conversation moved to EQ, and is how well emotionally regulated are you, and how can you key in with other people's emotions. And then now people are talking about, not intelligence quotient, they're talking about technology quotient. Yeah, that's it. Although I haven't heard anybody call it TQ. That is, how well do you understand tech, and how well can you adapt it to the challenges that you face every day. So, and then we didn't talk about that in the Facebook Live, but just to let you know the evolution of these ideas about what is important and what is needed for progress. So we start off with IQ, how smart are you, to EQ, how empathic are you and how self-aware are you, to technology quotient, how well can you take technology and adapt it to the problems or the goals of the day. So Mr. Emmanuel talks about how emotional intelligence is important, because the ability to understand yourself, regulate yourself, your internal environment, your emotional environment, understand the emotional needs of others around us, makes it easier for us to navigate business, easier for us to navigate sales, careers, and blah blah blah. That's because when you have an improved ability to read non-verbal cues, so not just what people are saying, that's the verbal cue. The person says good morning, that's a verbal cue. Non-verbal cues, body language, facial expression, tone, and pitch of voice. For those of us who are married, we know this all too well. Your wife wakes up in the morning, she looks at you, and she says, good morning. That's a verbal cue. Good morning sounds nice, right? But then, there's a way that your wife, her body language is, there's a way that her face is, there's a way to the tone and the pitch of voice, and you know that with the way babe just said good morning, you know that all is not well. You must have done something yesterday. You guys are not totally done with the quarrel, or there's something on her mind. You guys need to have a discussion. So that's what I mean by non-verbal cues. So not just what the person says, but their body language when they're saying it, the facial expression, the tone, the pitch of voice, and all those sorts of things. All the other things that people are doing along with that. Somebody can be using engaging language when having a conversation with you, but if they're doing that, they're looking at the tab or they're tapping away on their phone, then begs the question, are they really engaged, even though they're saying the right things? Is he really listening? Is she really listening? Then, let me see, what else? Okay, so we also went through other useful tools for engaging people emotionally in the sales process. And I think it was Brian Tracy related as well. That was the part about always asking people why. We also made a podcast episode on that. I'm not sure when I made that one actually, but I think I called it the 5 why framework, because Brian Tracy has spoken about that, Zig Ziglar has spoken about that, and so some people just talk about it as the 5 whys That is, you say why, the person gives a response, you ask why again and why again and why again, and eventually you get to the bottom of the matter. Okay, let's say back to the wife example. Wife says good morning, and you say, babe, you sound kind of downcast. What's going on? Okay, well, first of all, the why thing, the five whys, it doesn't have to be actually why. It can be who, why, what, where, when. Well, the bottom line is that you do it about 5 times. So why do you sound like that? She gives you a response. You ask another who, why, what, when question. She goes deeper. You ask again and deeper, deeper. By the time you do it 4 or 5 times, you now have the real root of what it is that you guys need to talk about and why wifey is upset first thing in the morning. So it's also the same thing in the business context. So you ask why repeatedly, or who, why, what, where, when questions, and then you get to the real reason, the real motivations that people have for buying from us. That's for those who ended up buying with us, because it's nice to know why they bought. The reason why they bought, that's our USP that we're going to use to market to other people. And all these why, who, what, where, when questions also helps us realize the reason why they're even talking to us in the first place, and possible reasons why they might be interested. Those are things that you can lean into in the sales process. And then, of course, if you're asking these sorts of questions, it gets people emotionally engaged because you're there and you're listening. Because what the typical salesperson does is to come and say, buy this. This is the greatest. This is the best. This is the best for you. Blah, 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 blah. It's a pitch from beginning to end. So the person who shows up and is asking, what do you want this for? Why do you need this for this? But I thought you said this earlier. How is this going to tackle with that? If you use this, is this going to give you the best results? I mean, the person is leaning into you, and then that also gets you emotionally engaged if you happen to be on the receiving end of this kind of treatment. All right, so we're at 20 minutes. Let me try and wrap it up quickly. We also explored why it's important to show that you care. Show that you care because it helps people know, like, and trust you. And of course, it helps build relationships, and it creates an unconscious bias. People really like you if you follow all these processes and you show that you care. And then we signed off with him saying that we need to have a good self-esteem and a good high sense of ourselves, good confidence, because sales involves a transference of emotion. And what that means is this: if you're angry and you're fearful or timid, you're oppressed, you're jittery, you're shy, you're downcast, and you're a salesperson or you're a business owner or you're a business promoter, you're not going to be able to bring in much sales because you're carrying all this emotional baggage around you, and you're going to be infecting people that you talk to, people in your office, your colleagues, the people that you talk to, whether potential customers, whether actual clients, or you're looking for investors. You're going to be dragging this cloud over your head. Even if you have to have conversations with industry stakeholders or community leaders or government regulators. And yes, that is not sounding too far-fetched, because there are some people who have to interact with all these people in the running of their business. So let's say, for instance, you run a cake baking outfit in Abuja, for instance, or in Lagos. You know for sure you're going to be hearing from local government people anytime soon, because they're going to come knock on your door. Have you paid for signage? Have you done this? Have you done that? Have you done this permit? Have you done that? Whatever. So it doesn't have to be real huge like Dangote. But yep, there are some people that are constantly talking to industry stakeholders, community leaders, government regulators, blah, blah, blah. It's just part of the business. Anyway, bottom line is, if you have all this negative jazz inside your head, you're carrying it around, and it's going to be messing with how you can do business. So his advice was that you need to get a hold of your emotions, your internal balance, your inner working, the inner game of sales and business, as he put it, before you head out into the market. Now, one thing I'm sure you guys have noticed is I don't talk about all this emotional stuff a lot on the podcast. However, even though I don't talk about it, it's really important. The reason why I usually stress the process stuff and the framework stuff first as a means of growing your business is because for most people, I don't understand why, but when they discover all this emotion stuff, positive talk, no like and trust, emotional quotient, they seem to remain at this stage. And then next thing they're talking about, I am a high D, decision maker. I am a high I, influencer. I am a high S, socializer. I'm a high I, influencer. I am an Enneagram this, I am an Enneagram that. Sagittarius. I am Leo, I am Taurus, I am blah, 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 blah. Next thing, they're doing positive self-talk, affirmation, talking about the universe, and they just remain in that weird space. So, understanding personalities, yeah, that's good. Understanding how Sagittarius reacts with Taurus, yeah, that helps. Seeking balance with the universe and manifesting and calling out secrets of the universe, all that stuff is good. But the thing is, if you do all this internal work and you're calling out to the universe and Nam Yoho Renge Kyo and I manifest this and I call forth that, but you have a bad sales framework or you have a bad sales process, it's going to yield frustrating fruits. So that's the main reason why I put the process stuff first. I mean, all this emotional stuff, it's important. But let's get the process nailed down first. Then we can now worry about whether we're aligning with the universe or whether we're a high D or whether Taurus is not supposed to talk with Sagittarius or whether I'm introverted and my clients are extroverted or the other way around. Let's get the process down first. And then we can now layer on all that emotional stuff. And it's neither one nor the other, but both will work together to give you the best results. So that's it pretty much. Yeah, I think that's just it pretty much. So either way, both are important. Yeah, both are important. So you should be listening to other specialists who talk about these sorts of things, and you should be listening to other business podcasts, other career podcasts beyond mine, so you can get a fuller context into the world of career growth and business development. So listen to everybody. Listen to the emotional people, call out to the universe, but then also listen to folks like me as well, the dry people who emphasize the process, because it actually works both together. Like you wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you have a bath, you open up your Bible, you say your prayers, and then you hit the road. So they both work hand in hand. Oh, by the way, anyway, let me not talk about the universe people. Let me move on. So, for those of you who didn't attend the Facebook Live and you saw the advertisement, this is all that you missed in a 1 hour session. So the next time you see an advertisement, you see a promo, you see a link for free online events where I'm a facilitator, whether I'm moderating it or I'm the host, these are the reasons why you should attend. Because my sessions are practical, they're impactful, and they're always tailored to who is in the audience. That's why I don't have slides. And that's the reason why I make all these summary episodes, so that you are there, you need the pointer over what to research next, and over what we discussed. You'll have a podcast episode that will lead you there. That's because I didn't prepare a slide. I'm reacting to who's there, and we're coming up with stuff on the fly. Well, of course, we have a general outline about where we're heading before we begin. So the next time you see one of my free online events, come and hang out with us. It's going to cost you nothing. You're going to learn a lot. And hopefully you'll get to meet new people and expand your network. So that's all for today. If you love what you heard on the podcast and you like daily access to me, you want to ask me questions related to how you sell in your business, you got general business questions, the WhatsApp coaching club is now open. The investment required is only 5,000 Naira a month. Ask me anything. I give you answers. I give you assignments so we can move your business forward. If you're interested, hit me up on social media DMs. Send a message to me saying you're interested. You can also hit me up on my phone number. That's 080-6466-2140. The country code for Nigeria is +234. If you're looking for me on socials, my name is Tavishima Ayede. The correct spelling of my name, email address, my photo, it's on this website where you're currently listening to this episode, or it's in the profile of the podcast app where you're currently listening to my voice. And remember, if you're starting a business and you want to save to get capital, instead of looking for bank loans, I'm affiliated with a reputable financial institution that has over 504 billion Naira in assets under management as at 2023. And the business that they're in is in protecting and guaranteeing your savings. So message me on 080-6466-2140 to get started saving towards your dream goal of financing your business. It doesn't have to be business related. If you're saving towards retirement, they handle that. If you're saving towards your children's education, for those of us who have little kids, they handle that as well. So thank you very much for your time and attention. I'll catch you guys at the next episode.